Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices is made possible in part by Allstate, the Searle Funds at the Chicago Community Trust, and CIBC.
Good evening y bienvenidos to Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Michael Puente, reporter with WBEZ Chicago. Thank you for sharing part of your holiday weekend with us on the show tonight. Despite the FDA's full approval of the Pfizer COVID vaccine, some community members are still hesitant to receive a shot. We hear from a medical professional on the reasoning behind some of this reluctancy and how it's being addressed. And Chicago's Spanish language baseball announcers slide into talk about our home team's prospects in the postseason and next year. And COVID has shut down the Mexican Independence Day Parade for a second year, but Fiesta Boricua is going ahead with their plans. We talked with the event's organizers about their decisions.
Everything we do is about reclaiming.
And becoming oral historians, a new Gage Park program is teaching young people how to document the stories of their own communities. First off tonight, the FDA gave its full approval to Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine for people 16 and older at the end of August. Just days later, vaccine doses in Illinois spiked from about 26,000 on August 25th to more than 122,000 doses administered the very next day. That's according to the Illinois Department of Public Health. But hesitancy among community members to receive the COVID vaccine remains. Joining us to discuss some of these hesitations in the community and her take on it is Dr. Evelyn Figueroa, professor of clinical family medicine at the University of Illinois College of Medicine and vice president of U of I Health Medical Staff Office. Dr. Figueroa, welcome to Latino Voices.
Thank you, Mr. Puente.
Well, doctor, what hesitations have you noticed among patients or community members to get the COVID-19 vaccine? And are they particular to the Latino community?
Well, vaccine hesitancy has been demonstrated throughout all communities, but definitely BIPOC, mainly including in Chicago, Latinx and Black populations have demonstrated a little bit more hesitancy than the general population. Things that people talk to me about commonly. One, I'm sort of biased because UI Health, where I take care of patients, 80% of our patients are Latinx or African American. So most of my data points are Black and brown. The first thing that people talk about is that the vaccine is too new and that it needs more time to be tested in spite of making it through all three phases of FDA trials. So I try to remind them that it's actually been vigorously tested. It's been more tested than any other vaccine, upwards of 10 times more than common vaccines like human papillomavirus. And that the reason it went so fast is because it was funded federally, which is different than most vaccines.
Well, let me ask you this. According to the Illinois Department of Public Health, about 14% of the people getting vaccinated are Hispanic. Would you say that is a pretty strong percentage given that 17.5% of the population in Illinois is estimated to be Hispanic?
You know, in my clinic, most of my Latinx patients have been vaccinated, and there's a bias that I have with that, right? People that come to the doctor are more likely to be willing to share the discussion and the decision with me. It is clear that there is a lag in brown and Black populations to take vaccinations. There was some Kaiser data I looked at tonight or today nationally that shows the Latinx vaccination rate is pretty comparable to the Latinx population nationally, but there is a lag in Illinois. And I do see that in clinic. However, I can fortunately only count on one hand how many Latinx folks that I've had in clinic that haven't taken the vaccine. I also run the Pilsen Food Pantry, which is in Pilsen, and about half of our clients are Latinx. We've done several vaccination events, and we have gotten a lot of folks saying that they've taken the vaccine, but we've also had folks that were reluctant and expressed concern and wanting greater time.
Well, we spoke to Claudia Reyes, a former nurse who suffers from ALS and has been hesitant on getting the COVID-19 vaccine due to the effects it may have and also due to the lack of accessibility. Let's take a listen.
I was more concerned with how it would affect me having ALS and with breathing altogether, since it is a respiratory thing. Since I am disabled, I don't really go out a lot. Now at this point, it's more of me just being able to get taken to get it kind of thing. Accessibility is a big issue with a lot of older people having a harder time getting around. And yeah, I mean, some people do have family that are able to take them, but a lot of us have family that works. So it's a difficult situation.
Doctor, have you noticed accessibility to be a common barrier to getting a COVID vaccine? And if so, how can this be further addressed?
Mr. Puente, yes, access has and equitable distribution have been issues with the coronavirus pandemic and have extended into vaccination. However, our Committee on Racial Equity in the city has gone to great lengths to make the vaccine accessible to all folks. So I wanted to kind of make sure I address this. You are now able to contact the city of Chicago and get vaccines simply by contacting the city. So calling 311, you can get your vaccine taken to your home for you if you have transportation issues. We do know now that the mass vaccination sites are not going to work as well for people with mobility issues. We predicted that in the beginning, we just didn't have the infrastructure. We're at the point now where we can literally take single doses of vaccines to folks.
Well, Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are two corona vaccines that are currently authorized by the FDA on an emergency use basis. Doctor, what would you say to people who are hesitant for this reason?
I tell people that the best vaccine is the vaccine that they can access. I've taken care of countless patients that have received the Johnson & Johnson and Moderna vaccine types that have not had any serious complications. I still do COVID vaccine service I still do COVID service in the hospital. I haven't admitted a single patient that's had complications from the vaccine. I've only taken care of people who've had complications from the infection itself. Remember that the vaccine is not a live virus. The technology behind the vaccine is that it cannot give you COVID. It only uses uses a protein that's on the shell of the organism to provoke a response from your body. So you can't get sick from it, even if you have a very weak immune system.
Well, Claudia Reyes also shared how misinformation or lack thereof has kept people from getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Let's take a listen.
A lot of it is misinformation that they get. A lot of times doctors just tell you, okay, you should get the vaccine. They don't give you a reason why. They don't explain what the consequences are or that you might feel sick. You know, I think if you're going to get a better crowd to do things that you need them to do, it's going to stem from people that they know. So I like the churches, if they're involved with the church, I've seen them be very good advocates for that.
Well, doctor, we got about 30 seconds left. What would you say? People are wondering about a booster shot. Should they get a booster shot? What do you tell them?
I think we should take whatever we have access to. A booster shot is certainly not going to protect people who aren't vaccinated. It's going to help those of us who are already vaccinated. The booster seems to provide a significant amount of additional protection from the mutations of the COVID virus, for example, Mu and Delta Plus. So we're supposed to get it soon at UI Health, and I will be taking it as well as my children.
A lot of great information. Our thanks to Dr. Evelyn Figueroa for joining us here today on Latino Voices.
Thank you.
Up next, talking baseball with the Spanish sports broadcasters for the Cubs and Sox. Stay with us. As the 2021 baseball regular season winds down, Chicago's teams are headed in different directions, where the Southsiders are looking playoff bound and the Northsiders are left saying maybe next year, again after trading away 3 of their marquee players. Joining us to talk about the state of Chicago's baseball teams are the team's Spanish language broadcasters. Omar Ramos, who calls the games for the Cubs, and Hector Molina, the play-by-play announcer for the Chicago White Sox. Welcome both of you to Latino Voices.
Gracias. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Hector, we'll start off with you. The Sox are looking pretty good. What do you think their playoff chances are, and how deep do you think they can go if they make it?
Well, they're pretty good. My concern is injuries, and Cleveland is only 9 games back, and it's about 28, 29 games left. And we know that it happened before. Sometimes you have 12 games left, and all of a sudden you just disappear and somebody takes over. So I'm really afraid of the Cleveland Indians because they got good pitching, and they are hitting the ball better than they were before the first half. Other than that, I don't think we have any problem going into the playoffs if we can keep winning at least. It's about 28 games left. If we can get 15 out of the 28, it's okay. But other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape. We got the hitting is back. Abreu is hitting in August like he used to. Luis Bravo is amazing, and he's hitting. Eloy is hitting. Now Yasmani Grandal is hitting. And that's all we needed. I mean, we need hitting in the team from the main guys, and the main guys are Abreu, Moncada, Grandal, Eloy, and Luis Robert. They're all hitting at the end of the season. So I hope this continues all the way to the playoffs.
Now, Omar, it's a very different picture on the north side. The Cubs, of course, traded away 3 of their core players, and they had record-breaking losing streaks ever since. Are they headed into another rebuild?
I sure hope so. You know, it's been a difficult 2021, but you know what? It's been a difficult time ever since like 2018 when I felt that the offense was broken. You know, there was something that was just not gelling with these players, especially on the offensive side. You know, that the pitching was pretty solid, especially when we had Yu Darvish on the team. And then all of a sudden they just decided to, you know, create the overhaul. They did make it interesting in the first half of the season. You know, they were kind of, you know, right there fighting, competing with the Milwaukee Brewers, a very good team. And then all of a sudden, right before the end of, you know, the first half of the season, things just collapsed. They just couldn't hit the ball. They were striking out left and right. You know, the players that were supposed to be responding, you know, the three-headed monster and Baez and Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo, they just weren't gelling like they were in the past, and they hit plateau effect. And I think the team realized that they needed to make change, and that's why we saw those crazy changes. And right. They just gave a facelift to the team.
That's right. Now, Hector Molina, Tony La Russa was a controversial pick for skipper, but now we're almost at the end of the season. What would you say about his performance so far?
Well, honestly, I really like Rick Renteria. He did a good job with the team. But you can argue with Tony La Russa. I mean, he's a winner. Winner in Oakland, winner in St. Louis, and he's a good manager. I mean, he's a people's manager. He's a player's manager. He understands. He's been there too long. He's been through thick and thin. And, you know, so players now recognize that they needed La Russa. You know, the way you see how the manager is handling things is the way the dugout is. And that clubhouse is probably the loser. It's the loosest clubhouse in baseball. I mean, everybody's friendly. They are excited about being in first place, probably going to the playoff for second year in a row. And everybody's playing together. So I think the influence of Tony La Russa has been great because he's a player's manager and he knows how to deal with talent.
Now, Omar, on his new team, Javi Baez has had some trouble with Mets fans and his fellow Puerto Rican teammate Francisco Lindor's thumbs down gesture. Do you think Latino ball players are perceived differently than their non-Latino counterparts?
I think to a certain extent, but, you know, specifically with Javi Baez, you know, it's one of those things where there's a lot of pressure on him. He goes from like an important market like Chicago, which is very tough, and then he goes to New York, which I think is probably tougher. Obviously, the Mets are competing and they want to compete and they want to make it to the big show. I think when, with the situation with Javi Baez, I think a lot of stress on him, to justify leaving Chicago, going to New York, trying to it's a contract year for him. And things were not playing out for him. And unfortunately, when you're under stress like that, I think he's a great ball player. He's a good person. I knew him personally. And I think it was just one of those bonehead situations. And I think his situation is a lot different from, the attitude or the conduct from other Latino ball players.
Now, this question is for both of you, but I'll stick with you, Omar, first. Latinos make up an increasing share of baseball fans, and Major League Baseball has been reaching out to them with special Hispanic Heritage Month jerseys and other gestures. What more do you think Major League Baseball can be doing? Start off with you, Omar.
Well, I think that when it comes to celebrating the Hispanic community, it goes beyond Cinco de Mayo. It goes beyond Fiestas Patrias, 16 de Septiembre. I think we need to embrace the Puerto Rican community, the Dominican community, the Cuban community, and other Latino ball players that come from other parts of the world, the Venezuelan community as well. I think that they need a hyper focus on that. And I just make it seem like it's, I don't know, my perception of sometimes is like they make it super Mexican. And I think we need to share the love, throughout the platform.
What do you think, Hector? What more can Major League Baseball be doing?
Well, first of all, I never liked the idea of having a month or a day for any community. I think we are Latinos 365 days a year, and we should celebrate what we are all year long. So just picking a month or picking a day just to embrace certain communities doesn't go along with me. I believe that we are good the 365 days of the year. Other than that, I think MLB is doing a good job with the Latino players. It's doing a good job in places like the Dominican Republic and Venezuela, where they establish academies. They help the talent that is coming up from those places. That's why you have so many players now coming into the major leagues. From different places. I mean, you have players from Nicaragua, you have players from Colombia, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Venezuela, Panama. I think we're here to stay, and we're here to influence baseball as much as we can.
Well, our thanks to Omar Ramos and Hector Molina. Up next, teaching young people to be oral historians for their community. A new outdoor exhibition in Gage Park tells the neighborhood's history from the perspective of residents who live there. It's part of a new program started by the Gage Park Latinx Council, inviting the area's youth to reclaim the community's narrative. Here's Brandis Friedman with the story.
Marcos Hernandez grew up in the Gage Park area on Chicago's southwest side. Hernandez says the media often focus on violence in the community without contextualizing neighborhood challenges like disinvestment.
The only narrative that is told about our neighborhood focuses on that trauma, that decontextualized trauma. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to reclaim our narrative. We wanted the people from this neighborhood to tell their stories on their own terms.
Hernandez is one of 10 Gage Park youth working to change this narrative. They're part of a new program called Documentografia, run by the Gage Park Latinx Council and in collaboration with the Chicago History Museum. It's a paid internship program that teaches young people how to be oral historians of their community.
A lot of our histories as Latinx folks are oral, and if they are not documented, they are lost when we lose generations of folks. And so we want to commit to curating and protecting those histories.
The participants spent the first part of the program learning from museum curators, and the second portion collecting stories from the community's residents. They captured it through photography and oral histories. Hernandez says more authentic stories are told when residents document their own community's history.
We get stories about joy, community, coming together to overcome obstacles. We get stories that inspire people towards action, but we also get stories that are not necessarily related to like mobilizing for action. We get just stories of people living their lives, their everyday lives.
The program really allowed us to learn about stuff that we probably wouldn't learn about in school, and we definitely wouldn't see in media.
The participants finished the program by creating an outdoor exhibition of their work in a garden that's also run by the council. Before installing the exhibit, they made a prototype of the area to plan its layout.
We also learned about how to curate an exhibition to be accessible to the people of the community and not just rich people who can afford to go to museums. And some people work at night, some people work very early in the morning. So the exhibition is open at all times and it's in the community. It's in a garden space, so it's not locked up or anything.
The exhibition connects Gage Park's history with its present through issues like gentrification and displacement.
Connecting that issue to like displacement that might have happened in the past, whether it was this community or maybe some surrounding communities.
The exhibit also covers entrepreneurship, white flight, and the civil rights movement. Director of the council, Antonio Santos, says the vision is to continue the program and to make the cultural center a hub for Gage Park's histories.
So that histories can live in our own communities, and we're not depending on museums and institutions to do the work to show our stories some dignity.
For Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman.
The exhibition is located in the garden at the intersection of South Holman Avenue and West 53rd Place in Gage Park. The spread of the Delta variant has set back the return of public events in Chicago. This week, the Little Village Chamber of Commerce announces that for the second year in a row, the historic Mexican Independence Day Parade down 26th Street will not take place. Here's Executive Director Yvette Trevino on the decision to cancel what Chicagoans can do to support the community instead of a parade.
The Little Village Chamber of Commerce has decided not to have the Mexican Independence Parade this year due to the increased numbers of COVID and now the Delta variant. As you know, Little Village has been one of the communities with the highest rates of COVID and unemployment. So the health and well-being of our community is one of our top priorities. So with that, the hard decision of not having the parade was concluded, unfortunately. So traditionally, the Mexican Independence Parade attracts over 400,000 attendees from various communities and neighboring states. As a result, the Little Village Chamber of Commerce has decided to light the arch in the Mexican flag colors and also hang pennant flags from street pole to street pole. And those will remain up for the entire month of September. So we are expecting to have an increased number of visitors for the entire month. So we just really want to encourage visitors to shop local, dine local, and really focus and support our small businesses here in Little Village.
But a few miles to the north, the 28th Annual Fiesta Boricua remains scheduled for this weekend. The Puerto Rican Cultural Center Director of Informatics, Xiomara Rodriguez, told us what folks can expect to see at this year's celebration, which will include opportunities for COVID vaccination.
Fiesta Boricua is a festival. A lot of people know it de Bandera Bandera because it's in between the two flags in Humboldt Park. It's been going on for 28 years, and it is really one of the biggest Puerto Rican celebrations of Puerto Rican culture, art, music, food that probably the U.S. has in general. It's huge. Every year we sponsor a municipality from Puerto Rico to come and bring their best of their culture. So this year it's Ciales. So a bunch of artists from Ciales. We have a group doing traditional bomba y plena. We have traditional trovador music. So it is a true traditional celebration of Puerto Rican culture. We definitely were struggling with whether or not to keep this festival going this year, especially with the rise in the Delta variant, and especially with kids going back to school and already cases of COVID coming out. And really what was the thing that made us want to continue doing the festival is because we were able to partner with CDPH and CPS to make sure that folks could get vaccinated at the event. Anybody who comes to the festival can get vaccinated if they're 12 and up.
You'll find more on Fiesta Boricua and Little Village on our website. And that's our show for this Saturday night. Be sure to check out our website, WTTW.com/news, for the very latest from WTTW News, including our story on Chicago officials offering $100 gift cards for getting the COVID-19 vaccine. And join Brandis Friedman tomorrow night for Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. And with classes back in session, how some high schools are deciding whether to maintain police presence in their hallways. And a Bronzeville incubator thinks outside the box when it comes to a traditional business model. And you can catch my reporting on 91.5 FM WBEZ. Next week on Latino Voices, Alex Hernandez of Univision will be here in the host chair. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, I'm Michael Puente. Thank you for sharing part of your holiday weekend with us. Stay healthy, stay safe. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that's proud to serve its community through pro bono legal services.